Well, first of all, let's define it correctly. We talk here about Palestinian membership in the UN, not statehood. You can declare your statehood, you know.
The membership, yes.
Kosovo, for example, declared its statehood. It's not a member of the UN because the Russians vetoed it. Well, the idea is very simple, that there has to be negotiations between the two parties in terms of what will be the final border, the status of Jerusalem, the issue of the refugees, security arrangement, all the rest of it. And by the way, the Palestinians have miscalculated because they do not have a majority in the Security Council. And therefore the game, if it was to embarrass the US necessarily and to force it into vetoing this situation, you know what, maybe it won't come to that. That remains to be seen, but at least it's an open issue. Nigeria announced officially that they would abstain, which is a big blow to the Palestinians, being the largest country in Africa, half Muslim population and a member of OPEC. So let's wait and see. But look, now it's saber-rattling on both sides. It's not productive, it's counterproductive. The Palestinians are threatening, the Israelis are countering, the Israelis are threatening, the Palestinians are countering. That's not helpful. Let the dust settle, and I would not be surprised if within a matter of 2 or 3 weeks the negotiations between us and the Palestinians, between the Israelis and the Palestinians, will resume.
Waqas, Dr. Olmert is hopeful that
Kaukab, I wanted to get reaction from my guests here. Both of them want to express their comment. Yeah, could I have Dr. Pirzada?
Yeah, please. You know, I want to quickly respond to what Chris Whitten said from Los Angeles, that the Haqqanis are terrorists. I don't know how he says that Haqqanis are terrorists or the Afghan Taliban are terrorists. I mean, the word terrorist is not being used by the Afghan Taliban, even by the American media itself. Neither the American military defines them as terrorists, they define them as militants or as insurgents. This is not the term for them. The terrorists are the people in the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, the Pakistani Taliban that attack the Pakistani cities and the civilians. These are insurgents. Right. And United States is being an occupying force in Afghanistan. It is United States that its presence is making nervous. What is the end game in Afghanistan that makes nervous Pakistan, Iran, and other countries?
Okay. And, Dr. Pirzada, a question for you. I just want to ask you, that what does Pakistan actually want? Probably be treated as a partner that has special interest in Afghanistan?
No, Pakistan's point of view is very clear. It's just like the Americans are not prepared to understand and address the Pakistani concern. Pakistan wants an Afghanistan which has a sustainable architecture of peace, but these are not just the words. An Afghanistan that doesn't create threat and criminality for its neighbors, that includes Pakistan, Iran, Central Asia, that gives security. And how is it possible? It is Pakistan's understanding is it is not possible unless the 50% population of Afghanistan, which is Pashtun, which is being represented by the Taliban, is accommodated in the power structure of Afghanistan.
just wants to reply to what you're saying. Go ahead, Mr. Whitten.
Sir, yeah, no, I would just say that, I mean, these people, the Haqqani network, we just had our top-ranked U.S. military official testifying before the U.S. Congress that they were the ones who attacked our embassy, attempted to kill Americans, and struck a number of targets on September 11th in Kabul. If that's not a terrorist, I don't know what is. But, you know, what you said, unfortunately, wouldn't pass the laugh test in Washington. These are thought of as terrorists. They are trying to affect a Islamist militant political agenda through violence.
Right. The United States has no, the point is, the problem is, this is what they don't understand. The United States has no legitimacy of existence in Afghanistan anymore. United States is an occupation force in Afghanistan. Afghans will attack Afghanistan.
Let's bring in Mr. Khan.
For a moment.
Go ahead.
The real trouble with the Haqqanis is the United States wants to set a stage for a transfer of power.
Is the attack on the embassy? Don't you think the United States has a right to have the embassy in Kabul? And if somebody attacks the embassy of a country, that is considered...
We cannot, Kaukab, we cannot reinvent human history. United States is an occupation force in Afghanistan. Americans are finding very difficult to believe this thing. If an occupation force sits in any country, whether it's in England or Ireland or United States, the local population will resist them. How can you tell the local population not to basically attack the Americans?
I just want Mr. Khan to complete
the sentence which I began. You see, occupation force or no occupation force, it's very evident, absolutely evident, that the United States wants a scenario where they can have 3 or 4 very strong bases and up to 25,000 troops. Now, this demand is being resisted above all by the Haqqanis. It was also being opposed by late Burhanuddin Rabbani.
Both parties want to do what our president wants to do. We just want there to be an end of Islamist terrorism.
Right, and speaking of the death of Rabbani, Mr. Whitten, I wanted to ask you this question. Here in Pakistan, there's lots of concern about a lack of clarity from the United States about the way forward in political reconciliation process in Afghanistan. What role do you think the United States wants to see Pakistan playing in the negotiated political settlement?
What is the end game?
It's hard to say. I think the notion that there would be a political arrangement with the Taliban probably was set back by the murder of the chief negotiator designated by the Karzai government. I think there is a great deal of concern about Pakistan's intentions in Afghanistan. I think there is a perception that the people of Afghanistan and Pakistan both want political matters to be settled politically and not through terrorist groups, not through militant groups, and therefore, the perceived Pakistani support for Islamist terrorists is counterproductive to that. The expectations are not high for imminent peace and stability in Afghanistan. So, I think there is
the United States that has decided to fight the Taliban. The Pakistanis have been telling the Americans to basically negotiate with the Taliban to bring them to the table. The problem is that the Americans think that first of all they have to give a bloody nose to the Taliban, they have to beat them, they have to teach them a lesson, and only then the peace can come back. I mean, Pakistan and Afghanistan and Taliban probably stand for reconciliation.
Can we hit them and talk to them at the same time?
And Christain, thank you very much.
But the point
I'd like to thank all our guests. Because unfortunately we run out of time.
Right, I'm afraid that, yeah.
Dr. Khan, thank you very much. And I'd also like to thank Professor Olmert, who's with me here in the studio, all our distinguished guests, and my co-host Waqas. And thank you very much for tuning in. That's all the time we have in tonight's show. Thank you very much.
Right, thank you, Kaukab, and thank you to your guests, and perhaps we could have another program on the same issue. But you were saying, Mr. Khan, you could continue.
Yes. Well, what I wanted to say was one major obstacle to peacemaking has been that the United States, the preference is that Karzai and Pakistan should not pursue the peace process. They would ideally do it alone, do it themselves. And the fact that Rabbani, Ustad Burhanuddin Rabbani, was opposed to permanent American bases was vitiating the entire atmosphere.
But the way to go about, like Mr. Whitten was saying, is not by...
So Rabbani's death is a terrible setback to Pakistan, it's a terrible setback to Karzai. Now, to pick up the pieces again, and I personally think the Americans would find it extremely difficult to find Taliban interlocutors
let's see what happens.
Without Karzai and without Pakistan.
Right, just 1 minute left, and Dr. Pirzada, your final comment. I wanted to ask that to Mr. Khan, but the way things move forward, what policies do you think can Pakistan revisit?
Pakistan will have to, see, depending upon the American pressure, United States can bring Pakistan under tremendous pressure. It's not by attacking Pakistan, but through economic pressure and other things like it. Pakistan will have to see what can it give United States in the near future that can stop Washington from demonizing Pakistan the way Washington is demonizing Pakistan at the moment.
But there are also,
just one sentence.
Very briefly,
I think Pakistan's policy is very clear. Try to repair the damage with the United States. It's a vital relationship. And but draw up contingency plans for an erratic decision in Washington.
I'm afraid I'll have to cut you off because what you're saying is quite in line with strong voices here in Pakistan and also in US that breaking ties is not in anyone's interest. Let's see how the two partners manage their relation this time. I thank my guest, Dr Moeed Pirzada, Mr. Tanveer Ahmed Khan. Also, a special thank you to Mr. Christain Whitten and Joseph Olmert and Kaukab Farshori of Voice of America. Thank you for watching the platform. My name is Waqas Rafique. Good night.